everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Have a very special guest here, and her name is Rebecca Bishop. And I am excited for you to actually hear more about her and her journey, her faith journey. And this topic is a little bit different in the sense that I've never had anybody with this particular topic, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling. And some of you may be saying, Christina, what does that have to do with what you normally talk about and believing for bigger? But I really think that this is a faith journey for Rebecca. But I also believe this past year, my word of the year was capacity. And I feel like God really wanted to increase my capacity to receive new things, new ideas, new concepts, new way of thinking, a new mindset. And if I really stop and think about it, I really did not know a whole lot about homeschooling. I think I had, and I shared with Rebecca, I think I only had one particular friend who actually homeschooled her children. And so I really just want you just to be open to hear her story, because I think it's a faith journey and how God really encouraged her to go on this journey. We're going to hear about her business. So let me tell you a little bit about Rebecca. She is the owner and founder of the Honest Homeschool. She has a degree in economics from UCLA. She's a former Christian school teacher, a paraeducator in special education for public schools, and a former university administrator. She homeschooled her children for over 10 years. She learned a lot through her education. But I think the best thing that I love about her, my pastor actually reminded us this past week, is that we as parents are our children's first teachers. And when you think about that as a parent who is homeschooling your children, the impact that you have on your children is so great. So let's welcome Rebecca to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here, Rebecca.
Oh, thank you, Christina. I'm very, very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's get started. I've given her some questions, and I want to first ask you how you actually got started in homeschooling, and like how did God lead you to that? And then the second part to that is she's going to tell us how this actually turned into a business for her.
Yes, I would love to talk about that. I love to talk about homeschooling. It's like my favorite topic. So yes, when I got married and started a family, I knew nothing about homeschooling. Never even crossed my mind. Both myself and my husband grew up in going to public school, public university, the whole way, all the way through. So homeschooling was not even on our radar at all when we started our family. I was working full time at a university. My husband was teaching in the LA Unified School District. So we were down in Southern California when we started our family. And when I had my first child, we just thought, well, we'll do daycare and I'll go back to work and continue what we were doing. And so after our first child, that's exactly what we did. I would drop off my son at daycare and go work all day, pick him up at, 5:30 and take him home. And that continued for a while. That was the norm. That's what all our friends did. That's what everybody did, right? And then I had a second child, my daughter, a couple of years later. And all of a sudden, the Lord started working on my heart. And it wasn't okay anymore for me to leave my kids at home. And I remember I did go back to work after my daughter was born, but I remember one particular day I was leaving for work and I'm backing out this long driveway that we had, and these two little faces are looking at me through the living room window, and it just broke my heart. And I started praying about it, and it just wasn't okay anymore. The Lord was stirring something up in me, and it wasn't okay for me to leave my kids anymore. And I started talking to my husband about it. And he heard me, and he kind of agreed with me. So I think the Lord was working on his heart too. And we started pressing into that idea. Well, how can we make that happen? How can I be a stay-at-home mom? Down in Southern California, you can barely survive on 2 incomes. Going down to 1 income and a teacher's salary at that, we didn't know how we could do that. So we just prayed into that, but we felt like the Lord was really calling us to do it, but it just seemed impossible to us, and isn't that the way with the Lord? He wants us to take that step of faith. And then he meets us there. And that truly is our story. He met us every single step of the way. We started going to this big church, and we met this amazing family who was homeschooling. And actually, the dad was doing the homeschooling in their family. Mom was working full time, and dad stayed home with their 2 daughters and was doing the homeschooling. And we started attending a Bible study at their home. And we met their daughters. One was in elementary school, one was in middle school. And we were so impressed with these girls, first homeschooled kids we had ever met. And they were so impressive. They were confident. They could speak they would come into the Bible study, a room full of adults, and just have wonderful conversations with adults. And we're going, how do you do that? No other kid we know your age does that. And so that was our first introduction to homeschooling. And we just thought, wow, so maybe that's something we could do. So we just continued to pray into that, and we continued to lean on the Lord to guide us for me staying home. And then this idea of homeschooling, are we supposed to do that as well? So we kept praying about that. And we decided, okay, we're going to take this step. We can't live here anymore. It's too expensive on 1 income. So we decided we were going to move. And this same family who introduced us to homeschooling had moved to Washington State. We went up to visit them and fell in love with it. And 6 months later, we moved. My husband got a job right away and was teaching up in a school district up here. And all of a sudden, instead of a working mom, I became a stay-at-home homeschooling mom with 2 little kiddos. And so it was a huge change. Also moving from Los Angeles to a very rural area, that was huge. So big changes. But again, we felt that the Lord was calling us to do that. So that's exactly what we did. So we decided when my son was about 5, my oldest was 5, I thought, well, I got to start homeschooling this little guy. And so I didn't know what to do. I love the idea of homeschooling. It sounded fabulous. I knew the Lord was calling me to do that, but I didn't know how to do it. How do I actually do that? So I got in touch with a friend who was homeschooling her 5 kids. And I just said, please come and teach me, show me what to do. I know this is where I'm supposed to be, but I don't know how. So she met with me. And I remember that conversation very well, because I was just, beside myself. I was so emotional and just crying. I don't know what to do. And she was very calm and helped me get started. And she gave me some very specific curriculum to start with my kindergartner. And one of the great things about homeschool curriculum is that you can find curriculum that's scripted, which is perfect for a brand new mom who's never taught before. It outlines exactly what to say to your child, what to teach, the goals, and all of that. So their homeschool curriculum is very friendly toward brand new people who haven't taught before. So I was very thankful for her suggestions on those types of curriculum, and it guided me every step of the way. And this one curriculum, I remember specifically, it's called How to Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And that's the scripted one. And it's still available today. People are still using it. It's very effective. It's easy to use. And that's what I taught. That's how I taught my son to read. So that was the beginning of our journey. And then I started teaching well, my daughter was 3 at the time when we started. So homeschool for us looked like being together, all 3 of us. I teach my son, and my little 3-year-old would be right there with us. I wouldn't be teaching her, of course, but she would be playing with toys and very involved in what we did. We did a lot of reading aloud and things, and she would be right there with that. So it's a family adventure, really. So we were all together all day, every day. And then we had baby number 3 come along. And so our 3rd child was born with Down syndrome, and which threw us all for a loop. We didn't know in advance. So we started praying about how we were going to educate our son with Down syndrome. I had no experience with special needs children at that point in my life. I ended up working with them later, and but at that point, we didn't know how we were going to educate him. So we started praying about that. It's like, Lord, we adore this child, but we want to do the best for him too. And I just didn't feel equipped. I didn't know how to be a speech therapist, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist for him. And then, of course, I didn't know how to adjust curriculum for what he could do. And it was just so overwhelming to me. So we started praying about that. And, the faith journey continued, because the Lord met us there and provided some fabulous teachers for him in the public school system. So at 3 years old, because they start with preschool for special needs kiddos, at least in that district, 3 years old, he was on a little public school bus going to school. And those teachers taught him. He flourished. He did so well. He had a lot of challenges. He didn't speak until he was about 3, and he didn't walk until he was 3. So he had some things to overcome, but he just did so well. And every year, the Lord brought new teachers who just took him under their wing and just taught him so well. So that was another part of our faith journey. And homeschool is like that. You can do what you have the flexibility to meet the needs of each child. It might not look the same for each child, and definitely for our family, it wasn't the same. 2 at home homeschooling, 1 in the public school, but everyone's needs were being met, and the Lord was blessing all of us. So we continued homeschooling. My son, my oldest, grew up in sports. We would homeschool during the day. I would drive him to the public school in middle school and high school to play football and basketball and baseball. He was just, the Lord made him that way. He's just a sports guy. And so we were involved with the public school that way as well. And he decided at high school he wanted to go to public school. We tried to talk him out of it. And we were unsuccessful. And we said, okay, well, we will try this at the high school. At that point, he was very involved in the church activities. He was on the worship team. He's very involved in youth group. And we said, okay, that's, if you're going to get involved in all the stuff at the high school, church stuff doesn't go away. That's where your focus is. So, he did it all. He was able to keep everything going, and did all of his sports, did well at the high school. And on scholarship night, when he graduated during his senior year, he was one of the top scholarship recipients in the high school. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Colleges love homeschoolers. So people might not think that because it's a little different, but they actually do, because over the years, I think college admission counselors have started to recognize how prepared and how solid and how amazing these kids are. So that's what his homeschool journey looked like. For my daughter, it was a little different. When she got to high school, we homeschooled part-time, and then the other couple of days a week she was in a homeschool public school co-op where she got classes there. So that was her journey. We also, let's see, when she was a sophomore in high school, we enrolled her in a program called Running Start here in Washington. I believe other states have very comparable programs, but here in Washington, it's called Running Start. And it's where high school students can take classes at the local college and receive their AA degree at the same time that they graduate high school.
Nice.
So, yeah. So our daughter graduated at 17 with her high school diploma and also her AA degree. So that was her path. From there, she went into ministry school for 3 years and then ended up graduating with a degree in music and business from a Christian college. So 2 college grads. And then our youngest, Andrew, continued to flourish, went all the way through public school, very involved in Special Olympic sports since he was 7 years old. And last year he had the opportunity to play in the USA Games, the Special Olympics USA Games in Orlando, Florida. So we say we've got 2 college grads and a Special Olympics athlete in our family. So
I love that. I love that. Rebecca, you said a lot during all of that. So I just want to backtrack a little bit because I kept hearing a reoccurring phrase, the Lord met us. The Lord met us. Because I think a lot of times we underestimate when we start something new, something that's unfamiliar, that we know, we feel that tug. We know that God is calling us to something different. And a lot of times we've not really had very much experience. You yourself said you really didn't know about homeschooling. And so I love the fact that you just trusted God, even though you didn't really fully know, okay, what does that mean? Okay, God, you're putting this in my heart. You spoke to your husband about it, but it means that we actually have to just walk by faith, and how God just orchestrated that family to be in your life so you could actually get started not knowing what to do. And then the fact that, especially with your youngest son, the fact that has those special needs, he had the teachers that were taking him under their wing. I just love that because it's like you had the kind of like the best of both worlds where you actually did the homeschooling, but also at a certain point said, okay, maybe we can try public school, especially like with your oldest son. So I just love that reoccurring theme of the Lord met us. And I think sometimes we underestimate that, we're going to try something new, and it's like we think in our mind, we got to figure it out. I got to know the whole plan. I got to know all the details. No, God's asking you to trust him. God's asking you to pray about it, right? And then he'll direct you to that next step. So I just love hearing that because that is really, really important. So tell me, how did this turn into a business for you?
Well, it turned into a business about 3 years ago. The Lord would just, it's funny because I go on long walks. I have dogs and I walk a lot. So I'm always listening to podcasts or listening to sermons. So one particular day I had forgotten to bring my AirPods with me. So I was just praying and walking and just, enjoying being out. And the Lord started telling me about this business idea of teaching people how to homeschool. And all these ideas started flooding in my head. So I got out my phone and I'm like writing stuff down. It's like getting this download, and I'm like, oh, this is for somebody. I'm supposed to give this to somebody. He's giving me something. And so I kept taking notes on my phone. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, yeah, I got all these ideas. They're for somebody. And they kept coming and kept coming. And pretty soon it's like, oh, they're for me. I'm supposed to do this. So yeah, that's how it started. The Lord just again did it again, said, hey, this is where I want you to go. I want you to follow me here, even though I didn't know. I wasn't in business. I never run a business before. I didn't know how to use social media to run a business. I knew nothing. So we just started step by step and started, a social media account. Got some people around me. It's actually at the Honest Homeschool, there's 3 homeschool moms. There's myself and 2 others, and we all bring our homeschool experience to the table and then share it with people who want to start homeschooling. So between the 3 of us, we have about 50 years of homeschool experience to share. With new families who want to get started. So it's just been growing. I took that step, and I was working part-time for a while, but I walked away from that job to focus on this business and to get it going, because the Lord told me again, and I just took that step. So yeah, it is a recurring theme, isn't it? I seem to be saying that a lot.
Yeah, and I love that because I think sometimes we're afraid to really just take that next step. And whatever God is asking you to do, he's already prepared you. He already has the way, but he wants to see if you're going to be obedient and actually take that next right step. And I just I'm in awe sometimes of how I hear people and their stories of how they just said, I just decided to do it, like God was telling me to do this, and so I just decided. So we heard about, because I can see your face light up. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Rebecca's face light up when she talks about homeschooling. What would you say is the thing that you love most about homeschooling?
The thing I love most about homeschooling is that I can bring Jesus into my kids' education. We would always start our homeschool day with Bible and devotions together. I taught my kids how to write by copying scripture out of the Bible. That's how they learn to write. You don't have that option in public school for sure. Bible scripture memory was just a part of what we did. And I also love being with my kids. I love that our family was together so much. And now that my kids are all in their 20s, one's married, we are so close. We are still a very close family. 2 of them live out of state. They were home. We were just home for Thanksgiving together, and it was fabulous. We are so close.
Nice.
So that just blesses me all over the place. I just love that.
I do love that because you're right, that you're able to bring the teachings of what you've learned and the teachings of Jesus to your children. So that is so, so important. So there is a mom or a dad out there and they are just curious of like, well, where do I start? Maybe perhaps God has been talking to them about homeschooling, or they're just curious to know, is this something that I could really do? Where would you recommend they even start?
Great question. We have a lot of resources at the Honest Homeschool. So they could start at our website, thehonesthomeschool.com.
Okay.
There is a section there called Where to Start. And we've got a long list, very detailed list about first steps. There's also a printable list they can print off. I will say that the very first thing that we always tell people is to pray about it.
Yeah.
Pray with your husband about it. And start listening to the Lord about that. And then the next step is to find out what are the laws, the homeschool laws for your state, because they change from state to state, and they can change over time as well. So there is an organization that we refer people right off the bat to called the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They have a website, hslda.org. And it's very easy to just go in there, click on your state, and find out exactly what the rules are. There is a notification that you need to give to the public school, typically. There's an age, like by a certain age, your child needs to start being educated. Sometimes, we think of age 5 as being the time because we think that's what public school does. 5-year-olds go to kindergarten. And but sometimes, like in the state of Washington, it was age 8.
Okay.
So I didn't need to notify the public school of our intent to homeschool until they were 8 years old.
Okay.
So those are some of the differences. Sometimes states require some education on the part of the mother, and sometimes they or the father, whoever's doing the homeschooling. And sometimes there is a parent course that they can enroll in to satisfy the laws of their state. So those are the first two things: prayer and HSLDA. What are the laws for your state? And then we have a whole list of other things as well. At the Honest Homeschool, we have every month, we have workshops, free workshops that are online on Zoom, just like this, where we go through all of those things and answer questions. All three of us at the Honest Homeschool are on the Zoom to answer questions from people who want to get started. So that is a free resource. We also offer coaching, and the first coaching call is free.
Mhm.
So if someone is brand new to homeschooling and just want to, talk to someone and get their questions answered, that is available as well. And all of that can be found on our website.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put the links to the information that she has shared, because I know that that would be something that somebody would want to know, like, where do I even start? And it's real important to even know the different laws within your own state. So let's
Yes.
end with this last question. What is the biggest faith lesson that you've learned throughout your homeschool journey?
The biggest faith lesson would be that God is faithful. He is always there. He is always there to meet us when we do take that step, even when we're so scared to take that step, but he's going to meet us there so that the next step feels a little easier, feels a little more comfortable, because then we know the Lord is right there with us. So, homeschooling is hard. It's wonderful. Sometimes it's hard. You're going to have hard days with their kids, right? You're going to have hard days where they're in public school or whatever type of education situation you decide on. You're going to have hard days. Same with homeschool. And in those days, we just need to press in to the Lord and say, hey, I can't, show me what's next. Walk with me, guide me on how to teach these children, because I don't want to mess up my kids. And we need the Lord to help us do that. So he has proven that he is faithful to walk with us when we're going down a new path. So that's what I would encourage people with. That's my faith journey, that God is there every time.
Yes, I love that. So God just continues to be faithful and meet you wherever you are. I think that is just a great lesson in our faith, and just reminding us that everything matters to God. And,
Absolutely.
of course, your children's education is also very important to you, as it is important to the Lord. So if you go to God in prayer, especially if you're feeling that tug of maybe the public school is just not working. There's just so much goes on in the public school. And like you said, I like the fact that you said meeting the needs of each child. And we all know that each child learns differently, and
Yes.
that their needs are so different. So Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing today. I know you have some freebies. You have a Christmas freebie. You
We
want to tell
do.
them about that?
Sure. Yes, we have some freebies for your listeners. It's called our Christmas activity pack, and it's full of, let's see, it's got 11 activities, 3 games, and 2 uh, recipes for kids in the kitchen. We call it the Kids in the Christmas Kitchen recipes. So it's kind of a fun activity pack, and it's free. So I think we'll give a code for that. They can download that and bless their family over the holidays.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. So I will definitely have that in the show notes. There's going to be a free code, and you can go to her website and you can download that. I want to leave you with this. If maybe perhaps you're past the childbearing years and you don't have littles at home, but perhaps a mom who is really looking for an additional option to, educate her children through homeschooling, share this podcast, because you just never know. Someone may be in your network where you could actually share this, and it could really be a huge blessing. This could be something that they're just like, man, I've been thinking about this for a while, but again, I don't know where to start. And I think that that would be key. So please share this podcast and know that God is good and that He cares about everything that you care about. And again, Rebecca, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I really, truly enjoyed our conversation today.
Oh, I did too. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank y'all. Okay. I'm going to end this.